Well, good afternoon all and welcome to the Vale of Glamorgan Cabinet meeting, and that's on the 3rd of November 2022. I'm Councillor Liz Burnett and I'm chair of the meeting as the leader of the Vale of Glamorgan Council and Cabinet member for Performance and Resources. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. And if anyone wishes to speak, they should raise their hand either on screen or by using the digital function. The chat function should only be used to highlight any technical issues and or to attract the attention of the chair or Democratic Services Officer. Today, we have comments from a number of committees, recent minutes from the Shared Regulatory Service Committee, which operates across a number of local authorities, and we'll be discussing the most recent capital monitoring position, a specialist resource base at Ysgol y Ddraig, engineering contracts, and our responses to consultations on social care and council tax. So without further ado, I will move on to the agenda. I can just get myself organised. The main agenda, and we'll start with agenda item 1, and that's apologies for absence. I'm assuming because we're all happily smiling on screen that we're all here, so that's fine. Secondly, minutes of the meeting held on 20th of October 2022. Can I take those as a accurate reflection of the meeting?
Yeah, I'll second that, leader.
Thank you. And agenda item 3, to receive declarations of interest. Everyone's silent, so I'm assuming that there are none. So moving on to agenda item 4, this is where I have to juggle screens. And we have a reference from Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of October 2022. And this was a reference that was sent to them from Cabinet in terms of the Welsh Language Standards Annual Monitoring Report for 2021-22. And there was quite a detailed discussion of the monitoring report, and a number of comments that were made, comments and queries really. That there was a discussion of the proposed case studies for future reports on these standards, and it was felt that they would be particularly useful in having a more sort of qualitative approach rather than a tick box approach going forward. And there was discussion over the wording of the report talking about the council's social media being bilingual, when in fact they are actually two separate social media streams, one in Welsh, one in English. There was also a query about the costs associated with Welsh translation, and it's it's quite often a query that comes up, but committee were reassured that that the agreement with Cardiff Council versus cost for an in-house service or another third-party provider had been fully explored, and that there was a competitive tendering process with both public and private sector providers to get the best service for the council. So they recommended that that the report be endorsed, and that was good. But they also have asked that there should be an amendment in terms of reference to social media accounts in the report being amended to reflect that wherever relevant, the council's social media accounts were operated under separate English and Welsh formats rather than single bilingual ones. So in effect, a point of clarification, and I'm happy to accept that as a recommendation. So in essence, with this reference, it is for us to note, subject to agreement of the recommendation over the slight amendment in terms of the bilingual social media or bilingual stroke separate streams of social media accounts. So on that, I would so move that we note.
And I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you. And is everyone happy with that? Yeah. Going on to agenda item 5, that's a reference from Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of October. And this is the Vale of Glamorgan Public Services Board annual report that was sent to them. Quite a detailed report. And it's, in effect, it's sent to us as it's sent to around the various members of the Public Services Board. And so, over the past few years, we've worked as a part of the Public Service Board, local Public Service Board, on 4 priority areas. And so that was the Cardiff and Vale Move More Eat Well plan, and that's with Public Health Wales, the Tackling Climate Change plan in conjunction with Natural Resources Wales, and the Time Banking plan in terms of public health, or in partnership with Public Health Wales, the council's housing team and Glamorgan Voluntary Services, and also the other priority areas, organisational learning project, which was for members right across. There were queries about the time banking scheme, and there was also a query about or discussion of expanding the council's champion roles in terms of enhancing communication. And I think that's work ongoing to increase levels of engagement. I know that Councillor Sifinianum held a recent event with champions looking at how they sort of add value to engagement and communications with the council. So the recommendations that they forwarded to us at consideration be given by Cabinet to developing further links and additional information sharing opportunities between the champion roles, scrutiny committees and the Public Services Board. I think that goes without saying that that's something we would want to do, and that is actually already happening within the council. So if we can note the report and sit and accept that the recommendation they brought to us is actually already in progress. So with that, I would move.
And I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you, Bron. Agenda item 6 is the final draft Vale of Glamorgan Council annual self-assessment report. That's a reference from the Governance and Audit Committee, 24th of October. Because if you can remember, we had the draft annual self-assessment report, which went to them. When it came back, along with all the feedback from the various scrutiny committees, we then send it back to them as a final draft. And this is the thoughts of the Governance and Audit Committee there. There was discussion within the committee about the level of individual responses to the report, and I think in some ways it's worth clarifying that these were specific consultation responses that didn't include the discussions that had happened with all the various scrutiny committees and the consultations within Governance and Audit Committee. But those sorts of levels, you can look at how many people have engaged with the information, which could be in the thousands, but the levels of people actually physically engaging quite often are fairly low. I do have one piece of supplementary information that is being tabled today, which is the Cabinet have requested to agree a revision to the section improving our economic infrastructure of Appendix A of the report. And I said that's been tabled and that's before you for agreement today and for forwarding on with this report if we send it forward to council. So with those, I think with noting the comments and suggestions of the Governance and Audit Committee, with the if cabinets accept the supplementary information which clarifies some of the typographical changes to page 9 which were mentioned, and that we refer the report on to full council for final approval, and that will be happening on the 9th of November 2022. And so I would move that we forward this on to full council for consideration or final approval, along with the supplementary information as tabled.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And then moving on, we have agenda item 7, which is a report of the meeting, that's shared regulatory services of the 27th of September 2022. And I believe that Councillor Sivanyanam is going to be taking this.
Thank you, Chair. I do apologise that the sun has suddenly come out here and I can't quite see everyone. So this is the minutes of the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee meeting, which was held not last month, but in September now. So whilst the minutes are quite brief, if I just highlight to you that we were presented with Audit Wales's report on the way on the finances of the SRS, and that was all very good. I think there were just minor changes that needed to take place for the future, but nothing of note. And then we were just given the usual quarterly update from on the running of the SRS, which as usual, had some noteworthy things, such as some successful prosecutions around animal cruelty, which was good to see, because these are some of the offences are recurring and with the same culprits. So this was a sort of good to see. I suppose the only downside of both the quarterly report and then the other report, which is given by the Food Law Enforcement Service, was that there are issues around resources, that they are finding it difficult to recruit. But as we know, Leader, this is something that we're looking at throughout the council. And again, with the resources they have, they are definitely punching above their weight. So I'd ask Cabinet to accept these minutes going forward. Thank you, Leader.
Trying to find my unmute button. No, it's okay. I'm juggling 3 documents and the team stuff at the moment on a small screen. So yes, I'm back in order. Yes, I'm happy to second that, Ruba. Is everybody else happy to accept? Super. So we shall go on to agenda item 8, and I will juggle my screen again. I can just get it to work. Super. Yes, this is the capital monitoring for the period 1st of April to 30th of September 2022. It's it wasn't that long ago that we had Q1. In effect, we're now coming up into about 5 months of capital monitoring. I think, as I said last time, at the time of writing the approved programme in terms of capital budget, totals just over 95.1 million, and that includes budget slipped from 2021 to 2022 into the following year, 2022-23. And if all the requests within the report to amend the capital programme are approved, the revised forecast outturn is projected to be 92.6 million, and the spend to the end of September is 18.4 million. So when we discussed it last week, we knew that there was going to be further slippage. The capital programme is currently subject to significant inflationary pressures due to the current economic climate, and that's not getting easier. This is leading to greater negotiation than usual with contractors, and the need to retender and value engineer. That's actually sort of amend the design to try and to bring in something that's more economically acceptable, and consequently scheme start dates are being delayed. There are also still issues with long lead times on the delivery of materials, especially in relation to the purchase of vehicles and some building materials. Schemes are being closely monitored throughout the year to identify overspends and slippages, and as part of this report, slippage of 2.5 million has been requested. Further slippage, if we're totally straight, further slippage is anticipated later in the financial year. Appendix 1 details financial progress on the capital programme as at the 30th September 2022 by scheme, and Appendix 2 provides a summary by directorate, sets out the approved budget in the final proposals report that was approved in February 2022. And then it details movements in year, including slippages and additions, to demonstrate the journey to the revised forecast outturn for 2022-23. The report also details delegated authority requests that have been approved, and also notes the use of emergency powers, which are detailed in Appendix 1 to the report. The report requests to make some amendments to the current capital programme, and some of the larger requests would be, for example, the carry forward of 1.546 million into the 2023-24 capital programme in relation to the Penarth Leisure Centre high-level glazing scheme. This is due to the complexity of the works required and the nature of the works to be undertaken. It wouldn't be prudent to carry out the scheme during the winter months, and the earliest start date officers recommend is March 2023, so that's been pushed over into the next year. The carry forward of 689,000 into the 2023-24 capital programme in relation to the Barry Regeneration Partnership Scheme the funding is anticipated to be used in the next financial year as match funding for grants delivering regeneration benefits. I think it's worth noting on that if you actually look at the report, it mentions there's actually an error, because it talks about carrying forward the 689,000 into 2022-23 capital programme. However, as I've just mentioned, it should say carry forward into the 2023-24 programme. And so the same change would need to be made in paragraph 2.12 of the report, also referring to the Barry Regeneration Partnership Fund. The Mirchfield Community Sports Facilities preliminary surveys and design work will be carried out in this financial year. However, construction is anticipated to commence in spring 2023. And for that reason, 178,000 is being requested to be carried forward into the next financial year. So that's a sort of brief run through of it. And the recommendations that we have before us today are that 1, Cabinet's recommended to note the progress be made on delivering the 2022-23 capital programme. 2, that Cabinet is recommended to note the use of delegated authority as set out in the report. 3, Cabinet is recommended to note the use of emergency powers as detailed in the attached Appendix 1. And 4, Cabinet is recommended to approve the following changes to 2022-23 and future years capital programme, and those are laid out under recommendation 4. And again, I reiterate, if you look at the Barry Regeneration Partnership Fund, it says carry forward into 2022-23 capital programme. That should be 2023-24. So with that slight amendment, I would move those recommendations.
And I'll second those.
Thank you. And now, so I just have to get my next reports up. As we become even more digital. It readable. That's good. So agenda item 9 is actually a report on the Welsh Government's Fairer Tax consultation, and it's to inform Cabinet and seek endorsement of the responses being made to the consultation. It's a fairly short report, and it provides an update on the consultation, which is a 2-stage consultation by Welsh Government to reform the council tax system in Wales. Stage 1 of the consultation process closed on the 4th of October and was seeking broad views across a number of principles. Welsh Government will view responses and bring forward detailed proposals in the stage 2 consultation to follow. We don't actually know what the specific timings are of that, but we know that they're aiming to have new arrangements in place for 2025. So by the time that they go through it, I would imagine sometime next year. The existing system is widely accepted as being regressive, and Welsh Government will doubtless want to undertake a full reevaluation or revaluation with more frequent revaluation cycles to follow, and also to expand the number of bands, especially at the higher end. The changes aren't intended to increase the overall level of tax take across Wales, and are expected to be cost neutral for individual councils. But the changes are also likely to impact on the balance of funding, with relatively more affluent councils having an increased tax base and having a reduced share of government grant. You know, that's one of the difficult areas. The actual consultation document is included at Appendix 1, and as well as setting out the consultation questions, it provides a clear guide to the existing system, and the council's response, which is fairly straightforward, is set out in Appendix 2. As I said, it's the process is already closed, but if there are any comments today, we do have the ability to feed those into Welsh Government subsequently. So really, in terms of this short consultation, the recommendation today is that Cabinet is recommended to consider and endorse the response of the consultation as set out in Appendix. Actually, that's wrong. That's incorrect. Under recommendation, it says as set out in Appendix 1 of the report, but the council's response is set out in Appendix 2. So the recommendation should be Cabinet is recommended to consider and endorse the response to consultation set out in Appendix 2 of the report, and I would move.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. And I can't see any dissent, so that's agreed. Agenda item 5.
Sorry, Leader, can I just double check? Sorry, I think I can only see one appendix in the report. Appendix 1.
Hang on, I have got one. I just need to call it back up now, Gareth. I'm just trying to get it to work. You are right. It's just I read it because in the in the background paper, if you look at paragraph 6 in the report, it actually gives a link to the consultation document.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorry, Leader, if I'll just come in
Yeah.
quickly. I think the appendix document is the questions and the responses. Yeah.
I'm just seeing that now. Yes. I took it as read. Sorry about that. I've confused everybody. So yes, if we can go back to the original recommendation of Appendix 1, I think, rather than me confusing everything, and endorse that. And are we happy with that? Super. Thank you, Gareth, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. So we can go back now to agenda item 10, and this is actually a report from the Cabinet Member for Education, Arts and Welsh Language in relation to the transfer of the specialist resource base at Llandoch Primary to Ysgol y Ddraig.
Thank you, Liz. Right, so this meeting, this agenda item is because this item has already been out to consultation. This is the final report on the proposal to transfer specialist resource base at Llandoch Primary to Ysgol y Ddraig in Llantwit Major. So the purpose of the report is to advise the Cabinet of the outcome of the statutory consultation on this proposal. During the consultation period, the Council had 4 responses by the closing date. Consultees were asked to indicate whether they support, do not support, or have no opinion. Out of the 4 responses received, all the respondents supported the proposal, but raised some points of their own. Raised during the consultation exercise is included in the report. For some background, Llandoch Primary School has hosted the authority provision for pupils with speech and language barriers to learning since 2002. The provision is made up of classes for pupils aged 4 to 11 with speech, language and communication needs. The staff are employed by the local authority and the school receives a resource budget based on the number of pupils attending the provision. The pupils are dual registered with their home schools and spend 3 days in the resource base and 2 days in their home school. This model enables pupils to be taught and practice specific speech and language skills within the base and practice them through the week in their home schools. They're supported in mainstream schools by the resource-based LSAs and teachers. This allows speech and language skill demonstrations, support and training to go into schools on a weekly basis, allowing these specialist staff to model strategies, and it also enables the schools to build expertise in working with pupils with speech and language needs who may not qualify for the unit. And it keeps the children fully included in their mainstream school. And the model was designed in conjunction with the NHS Speech and Language Therapy Service. Ysgol y Ddraig is an English medium community school located in Llantwit Major. It caters for 3 to 11-year-olds. An area of the building has been allocated for the SRB, and it's proposed that the SRB would follow the same model as above. It was adapted during COVID restrictions in order to manage the contact of pupils from different settings and to mitigate the risk of spreading infection between schools. As a result, pupils have been spending alternate weeks in the base in their mainstream schools rather than 3 days in the base and 2 days in school. Now restrictions have eased, and because of the facilities available at Ysgol y Ddraig, it's possible to revert to the original model, which provides the optimal support for the pupils. So, having had the original report, the Cabinet authorised the Directorate of Learning and Skills to undertake a consultation to transfer it to Llandoch Primary to Ysgol y Ddraig from January 2023. So, the recommendations are that Cabinet considers this report, the consultation response report and the other appendices, I think there are 3 or 4, included as part of this report, comprising the equality and community impact assessments. The Cabinet considers the proposals to relocate the specialist resource base at Llandoch Primary School to Ysgol y Ddraig on a permanent basis. And the Cabinet approves the proposal to relocate the SRB to Ysgol y Ddraig through the publication of the proposals in the form of a statutory notice. So if people could agree to those recommendations, please.
I'm happy to second that, Rhiannon.
Thank you.
I'm looking around, everybody's either nodding or putting thumbs up, so we're in agreement on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And the next agenda item is for the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood and Building Services, and it's the award of engineering call-off contract for direct labour and plant. This is and that's 2022 to 24. This is a part 1 report, and there will be a part 2 report to follow later in the agenda, won't there, Mark?
Yes, that's true. So I'd like to move this report, and obviously be part of the part 2. So thank you. I'm looking for someone to second that. Move that we note it. Thank you. I got that from Councillor John.
So I think that, yeah, I think that basically under this one, though, we would probably need to go through exactly what the report is, in terms of it being.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
If you could, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So basically, what this report is an award engineering call-off contract for a direct labour and plant. Okay. And what it's basically looks at a summary process for design and construction and section direct labour call-out contract for 22-24. At the moment, we've had a very successful contract for the last 3 years, with a term extended to October 2022. And this has allowed us time to prepare for a new contract for these financial years 22-23 and 23-24. This contract provides a suitable labour resource in the form of 2 to 3 year construction gangs to undertake capital finance projects. It seeks to deliver value and efficiency by using external labour resource to strengthen the council's in-house provision. The contract was re-tendered via the Sale to Wales portal on the 13th of April this year, with tenders being returned on the 30th of May 2022, following which a detailed valuation exercise was carried out. This will be detailed in the part 2 report later on the agenda. It's proposed to reappoint 3 contractors, ranked in order the most financially advantageous to the council. It's intended that the appointment of these 3 contractors to call off contract will be initially for a period of 24 months. However, also includes conditional extension of a further 12 months on agreement with the relevant contractors. The awards of services under the contract will be financed from the Welsh Government funded schemes, also including Section 106 funding, which is normally we get from plan applications, and various internal and external budgets. Therefore, as Cabinet is asked to note the contents of this report, review to take a decision on the contract via the part 2 later report later on its agenda. So I'm looking for a seconder that we note this report and consider it connection with part 2 later on the agenda. Thank you.
Second that.
Thank you.
There you are. Gwyn got in before me. Is everyone happy with that? Yeah.
Thank you
Everyone's
all.
nodding. So we'll look at that again under part 2 later. And then just looking, the agenda item 12 is over to the Cabinet Member for Social Care and Health, and this is a response to the consultation on proposals for primary legislation in relation to children's social care, continuing health care, mandatory reporting and regulation and inspection. So over to you, Eddie.
Thank you, Leader, and that takes away from me to read the executive summary. So thank you for that. Yes, so as you've indicated, there is a consultation, and it's quite a challenging and impactful consultation if the proposals are put forward. So the background is the consultation documents were issued from 17th of August, and in response to that, the Social Services Directorate management team, they've considered the consultation documents and developed a response based on the views of officers who work in the areas related to the different parts of the consultation. Those 4 particular areas, aren't they, is for consideration that are listed on the report, and it's about eliminating profit from the care of children looked after, proposing enabling access direct payments for adults who are eligible for continuing NHS healthcare, looking at existing duties to report children and adults at risk in Wales, and ask whether these duties should be expanded. And finally, explores areas within the existing regulation of service providers responsible individuals and social care workforce, and seeks views on potential amendments. You'll see in the appendix the responses back from the officers, and it's as I said, it was quite a wide-ranging consultation. In essence, if you look at the first question on eliminating profits, it's understood, isn't it? At the moment, it appears anecdotally that many of the providers make excessive profits, and so the idea of having a not-for-profit organisations to deliver that is probably the right way to go. Certainly, what I was concerned about was what does not-for-profit mean, and thankfully in the documents it explains that it's any monies that are made, any profits are made, would be put back into that organisation to develop the services, and then that's a good cause to have. We're obviously concerned that the impact of that, though, is that some of the providers we've got, particularly in Wales, won't be happy with that, and that's a concern that's listed in here. We need to recognise also that the demand for the number of children, population children who need looked after, has increased, and this has been impacted by the pandemic and the cost of living crisis. So it's likely we're going to need more families requiring intervention. So this legislative change is probably not a sufficient approach just in its own right, and it won't resolve that issue. As you can see from the responses back, there's a bit of reasoning behind that, and explains that we have got a significant shortfall of placements, and some of those placements end up costing us more when we go out of county and out of Wales. So it is important that we recognise we do need these providers, but we probably need to go in a different direction. So the differentiation of that profit making is a key element to that. The other points that discuss the direct payments, there's a very detailed response from the officers, and it's recognising that direct payments do work for individuals so that they can choose their own care. But there is a recognition that, again, it's not as straightforward as you're saying, right? There you go, choose your own way of dealing with that, because often we don't actually have the services or people available to provide that. And we've got to be careful that it doesn't disadvantage many on how they deal with the services they need, how they actually obtain them. The actual duty to report children and adults at risk is felt that as the legislation is at the moment, is probably sufficient, so it doesn't really need any other changes on that. And then on this change in how social care services are managed and checked, there's no objection, but it does give some indications on that. So the report is quite clear on that. So if I go to the recommendations, the Cabinet, first recommendation is the Cabinet considers and approves the attached consultation response in Appendix 1 for submission to the Welsh Government. 2, the use of paragraph 1514(2) of the Council's Constitution, urges the decision procedure be authorised in respect of recommendation 1. And 3, the Cabinet refers the consultation response to a scrutiny committee, healthy living and social care for consideration. They're the recommendation. I just want to point out that it's taken some time to do this response. People will be thinking, well, why is it late? I can speak for the directorate. This isn't the only thing that's having to be worked on, and you can see from the responses they're comprehensive and detailed, and which I think adds value to the consultation. So I'm hoping that the members, particularly the scrutiny committee, recognise that, and maybe they can bring up some other points which we could probably put forward at a later date. I so move. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Eddie, and I'm delighted to second that. I also agree with you that it's a comprehensive and detailed response, and I know when I first read it, I was quite taken with the amount of thought that had gone into it. So it wasn't just there's a consultation, I'll just chuck some words on a page. It's really been thought out, and I think that what you were saying about the not-for-profit area is that creating a surplus is not a bad thing. It's what you do with it. And I think that that's something that we know through our work with Big Fresh, but it's also something that we will be looking at different models of operation in terms of making developing services that are cost effective as well as, or effective and effective going forward. So no, thank you very much, and please pass on our thanks to officers that worked on this, although I think I know who did it, but I won't embarrass them by mentioning, but pass on our thanks please to them. Gwyn, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add my support, Leader. I agree with what you've said and Eddie's report, and I think the officer's done an excellent job here in challenging these questions. They're quite challenging, the questions, and they've done a very, very good job in response. Thank you.
Thanks, Gwyn. So I've already seen some people's heads nodding. Are we all happy to agree this report?
Yes.
We are. Thank you. Well, I don't have any items that are urgent under the part 1 part of the agenda. So as previously mentioned, we do still have the one report, agenda item 14, which follows on from the earlier report on today's agenda, and this covers matters that are considered to be confidential, and so therefore the meeting will need to move into private session where confidential matters can be discussed under part 2. Therefore, I'll ask for Cabinet to agree to move to part 2 and ask for the Cabinet Officer to stop the recordings of this open session to ensure that no members of the public are present after this point, and only allow relevant parties to remain to hear the detail of the items to be discussed. Following the meeting, though, the outcome of the part 2 discussions will be formally captured as part of the minutes of the meeting, and will advise all parties of the final decisions of the Cabinet for the relevant items. So therefore, can I formally move part 2? If I've got a seconder? Yeah, Gwyn's got his hand up. And therefore ask a Cabinet Officer to ensure only relevant parties remain from this point, and for the live stream and recording to be stopped, please. If you can let me know when that's happened, please, Gareth.